I would like to say that before the video, I had some pretty bad allergies when I recorded this the first time, so please excuse the poor audio quality, but I hope my points still get through despite the lack of quality. I may do more videos like this in the future with better conditions, but yeah, it was just a really bad recording day. Hey everyone. So I think this has been due for quite some time. Now what I'm talking about is a video explaining why I do what I do and why other people do what I do. And that is the concept of power scaling. I bring it up because quite a few people try to screech like chimpanzees whenever you bring up the topic, even though it's quite a lot more worthwhile than a lot of other discussions in fandoms, such as shit like shippings and other cringe. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So what is power scaling? Power scaling is essentially discussions on how powerful or capable of combat characters are in versions of media, be it film, book, whatever. Now, by that definition, power scaling falls under narrative analysis, and narrative analysis is often viewed quite highly. You'll even see it reaching millions of views on channels like Baller and Critical Drinker and stuff like that. People are willing to watch 6-hour dissertations on why Doctor Strange 2 is a bad movie. So a 20-minute video on how strong, say, Godzilla is shouldn't really be a surprise. Now, why does power scaling have a bad reputation? Well, a couple of reasons. For one, because it incites arguments. And a lot of people try to be babies about arguments. Oh, it's toxic. Oh, it goes on too long. Blah blah blah. The same people though will stand whatever they think is the best movie or their favorite movie, or try to insert political opinions, religious allegories, or whatever other nonsense into media analysis. But while all that requires headcanon and stretching and being a liar, power scaling, at least in concept, is very straightforward. You analyze what the media gives you. Of course, that's not to say people don't lie in scaling. Of course they do. Everyone has their biases for their favorite characters, their favorite series, and whatever they hate as well. Now, you'll often see it in large communities. For example, when Dragon Ball Super was running on air, you would often see people complain about the bad power scaling in Super, but then you would have the defense of power scaling doesn't matter. For one, Dragon Ball's always been a power scaling show because the main character's whole goal is to become as strong as he possibly can. So let's not hear anything about that. 2, good power scaling means that the story is functioning well. Things are consistent and logical. So when you have nonsense like Krillin beam clutching Super Saiyan Blue, that gets noticed. So as mentioned, power scaling then falls under a form of media analysis, just that regarding the strength of the characters. Going off that should mean it's more important to discussions of fiction than other things like ships, reviews, theories, and other crap like that. And yet, nobody really shits on those, like how they shit on power scaling. Why is that? Well, likely because they confuse scaling with debating, which are two different things. Debating is that quote-unquote toxic arguing that people seem to not like. But even then, debating has its uses. From personal experience, debating helped me when it came to public speaking classes in college and helped me analyze ways to speak better. If you try to convince, try to persuade, or try to prove something, then debating is a tool that you can use. Now, as it applies to fiction, technically, you're not really winning anything unless you're just trying to get out your scaling in earnest, which I think is very important, because whether or not you like it, being honest in media discussion is very important if you're going to do it. So if you're going to talk about which Godzilla is the strongest, which Mechagodzilla is the strongest, which Ghidorah is the deadliest, whatever the fuck, you should account for accuracy, you should account for scaling. This was partly inspired by a fucking loser who tried to make a video saying Godzilla scaling is bad, but considering that fucking monkey was unable to spell the word prove, I'm not giving that ape any more attention. So instead, I'm targeting bigger problems. Dangerville and Goju Center are some of the largest Godzilla channels on YouTube, and they often discuss things like the strength of monsters and who would win in fight. But they do it in the most ape way. They try to say, oh, this one's bigger. Oh, this one's corporeal build. and all that other dumb shit. Like, for example, Dangerville, the strongest Godzilla video, they accounted for size as a factor of strength, which is stupid because Godzilla swings well above his height and weight class anyway. So including size is just moronic. So then we have them also says things like Shin gets a 3 out of 10 in intelligence, but also straight up admit that it is a mindless beast. So they're literally just playing favorites. They're giving Shin points just because they like him, when in their own analysis he should have 0. They also imply he's more durable than Legendary or Heisei Godzilla, which is fucking brain dead. Now, Dangerville can get the temperatures right, which means they at least did a little bit of research. But as for Goji Center, the bigger offender, they straight up lie. They literally just Googled it, and you could tell in both their Shin video and their Attack on Titan video. They mentioned Legendary Goji has a breath temp of 500,000, and that's not true. Not only can you check in GVK's opening, but 500,000 is Heisei's temp. That's Heisei's temperature, and they know that, because that's straight up what you find if you Google it. That means they didn't even Google for their research. So I'd say Goji Center's the bigger offender. Now, the Mechagodzilla video was pretty bad, too. Dangerville was more discussing who did the best against Godzilla / who is the deadliest. That's a completely different discussion from who is the most powerful, though, of which is equally stupid to try to do that without scaling or analysis and just like go off of weapons and shit, which they did. But when me and a Discord bud were talking to them on Twitter, they actually just did not seem to comprehend at all. They did not seem to understand how being marginally weaker than Space Godzilla makes Super Mechagodzilla much stronger. It just did not seem to click. No, I'm not saying they're stupid, I'm just saying they didn't get it. So any dumb shit they say in their ranking videos or strength videos, I would assume comes off from ignorance and nothing ill-intended. Goji Center, though, are straight up liars, and they know they are. I left a fairly detailed comment on the problems of their Legendary versus Shin fight. Once more, they talked about useless garbage like corporeal bells, which is why they gave Shin and Legendary roughly equal strength, which is stupid, by the way, because Legendary has good feats and Shin really doesn't, other than like supporting his own body mass and going through buildings, but every kaiju can do that. They clearly didn't read this comment, or only read the ones that were praising them, because in the Attack on Titan video they stated once more. And they have continued to lie to people just for the sake of giving gore. Most recently, they lied about the scorpiopeds in Skull Island ecology. Young scorpiopeds are carnivores, but adults eat algae. They're herbivores. They're aggressive, but they're herbivores. But instead, they just wanted to show them sting a person so that they can feast on their flesh. They also pretended Ghidorah vs. Mechagodzilla is a closed topic. Like, it's not. They're trying to favor Mechagodzilla because it's better at hand-to-hand. It's better designed for melee combat. Like, Ghidorah just nags. And if you want me to explain that, I'll do a video on it in time. And they seem to just either hate or just cope when things are stronger than what they should be from a realist perspective, which I think is retarded to have in a kaiju discussion anyway. Like, for example, they mentioned the fact that the Night Feeder can cut through trees is evidence that it could slice through Adult Kong's legs. Adult Kong, who, while not nearly equal to, was still able to take multiple attacks from Godzilla, the motherfucker who could take asteroids, nuclear explosions, shatter buildings by just walking into them. But yeah, man, cutting a tree, totally better. Again, I'm not saying attack these channels. Goji Center are liars, straight up, just to have their like realistic, gory perspective on combat and try to dissuade and discourage power scaling as much as possible, which is very fucking bizarre to me. This impacts the community because then you get apes who just use their logic or get their scaling from YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts are a fucking cancer on this website, and anyone who power scales through them is a fucking idiot because it is lazy, no effort, monkey brain content that just has shitty rap songs and flashy images. No discussion, no analysis, just actual trash. But this has a huge effect on the community. It trickles down to the small people, down to the commenters who hate power scaling because of stupidities. But since we established that power scaling is a media analysis, and one that involves much more thought and effort than garbage, I don't know why power scaling is shit on so hard when the same fucking people will then spend dissertations explaining why Shin Godzilla is a good movie when it is not, or why the Monsterverse is an atrocity to the Godzilla franchise when it is not. They'll spend the same effort doing the same toxic arguing over actual shit like, "No man, I like it. I don't like it," rather than something objective presented by the story. And speaking of those commenters and buffoons, if any of them have a challenge to this, feel free to take me on. None of you can disprove my point or reason to back it up. Anyway, that should cover it for this one. See you in the next one.